we are here for, I believe it is the fifth panel of the LinkUp today. So this one is called The Diary of a Girl Boss. So I started this one because I wanted to bring you guys, I guess, just more access to other girls that are like us a bit. So the girls that are thinking about many different things at one time, or that already know what they want to be able to do, and then just kind of giving you insights into how they really got there. So we have, for example, Balvinder, who was the president of Hyperlink. She led a team of 140 students. We have Sophie, who I met during my time at Renaissance 3. So she's a service desk analyst. So she's already done an apprenticeship. So I wanted to bring them on so they can give you different perspectives, really. Because I feel like when you think STEM, you think either mathematics, or you're thinking that you have to be like cooped up in a desk or in a lab somewhere. But these guys are out there, they're working, they're studying, they're doing research, and they're doing so many different things. We have another panelist as well who's joining us. Her name is Jeevana, so she'll be joining us a bit later. So I'm just going to get, in the meantime, we'll have Balvinder introduce herself first so that she can just tell us who you are and then also what it is that you're doing.
Hi, everyone. So as Cameron introduced me, I'm Balvinder. I will be entering my fourth year of my Masters of Biomedical Engineering this September. I come from Malaysia. And in terms of my extracurriculars, I was the president of Hyperlink. I did lead about 140 students to build a Hyperloop pod prototype and compete at international competitions. I am now the team manager for Cybathlon QM, where we build low-cost assistive devices for the visually impaired. And I'm also a robotics research assistant at my university's robotics center.
Okay. Wow, this is amazing. So I will definitely be diving into the kind of work that you're doing as a research assistant. But in the meantime, I'm going to head over to Sophie and get you to explain a little bit about who you are and the kind of work that you're doing.
Hi, yeah, I'm Sophie. I'm a service desk analyst. So service desk is, if you imagine you work in an office and something's gone wrong with your tech, you run around to the IT department and you ask them a question. And that could be either to do with hardware and software errors, or it could be that you want to purchase a new phone, or it could be providing you with access to calendars or to different various systems. The idea is to assist users in the office to fix or to grant whatever they need as efficiently as possible with transparency, so they can continue on their day and do an amazing job for our company.
Wow. Very, very cool. So we'll get Sophie to explain a little bit more. So I think, Sophie, for the people that don't know, what is an apprenticeship? And then what made you choose to do one?
Okay, so there's three main options you can do after school. So there is the option of going into uni and doing a course for maybe 4 or 5 years in your specialized area. Or you can go straight into a job and choose whatever career you'd like to do. There is a bit in the middle called an apprenticeship, and that's where basically you would be doing you'd be studying and you'd be doing Microsoft courses, you'd be doing expert level certifications on the side, as well as having a full-time job and being employed and getting paid, so that you can, in a year and a half of doing all of that, you are given a nice certificate and you already have all these exams behind you and knowledge behind you, and you've worked in a company for a year and a half. So you're a really good candidate for if you want to stay on at your company or if you want to go elsewhere. That's what an apprenticeship is, and I think it's brilliant. And I got into it as I knew I wanted to go. I kind of knew already what I wanted to do. I wanted to work in IT operations, as in sort of being in the office and helping out users with whatever their issues are, and then just being that, reference point. And rather than going to a university, because I did look at the courses, a lot of the courses are more, at the time, tailored towards software dev or security or, things like that, not necessarily for the cables and the networking and that sort of thing. But I didn't want to go straight into a job because that would be a lot of pressure at the age of 18. And I kind of wanted to still enjoy studying and also learn how you should be in an office and all these wonderful things. So yeah, never look back. Yeah.
I think that's really cool, especially that you were able to know what it was that you wanted to go into from such a young age, and then to be able to pursue that, I think is really fascinating. So I'm going to go over to, I'm going to, just because Jeevana has now joined us, so hopefully you'll be able to just kind of introduce yourself a little bit and then tell the students what it is that you are doing at the moment.
Yeah. Hi guys, my name is Jeevana Thavarajah and I'm founder of Scientific News and I'm a current master's student at King's College London and I'm specializing in stem cell biology. So Scientific News is a website with free articles and resources and we have that as like an accessible tool for students across the globe. So currently I have around 60 volunteers across the UK writing on topics that they're passionate about from biology, chemistry, maths. And yeah, that's what we're doing.
Very cool. So I'm going to go back to Bao at the moment. So Balvinder, you already mentioned that actually, we were in the same year as well, but you're going a little bit further in the way that you're going to be doing a master's in engineering for biomedical engineering. So can you explain, I guess, why did you want to do the master's and why not just stay as a bachelor's?
Well, the first reason would be because a lot of people in my family do have a master's of engineering, so it'd be a bit odd if I just had a bachelor's. And another thing is that I I I guess it just comes with a certain level of like, oomph if you say you've graduated with a master's of engineering. So that was what I was chasing for. And I actually really like Queen Mary's, the way that they structure their fourth year. It's a lot more, you get a lot more free will of what you want to do, especially with like the modules that you get to choose. And because the cohort will be significantly smaller as well, you get to be in touch with like a lot of your professors a lot more personally. So then that would help you with your career a lot more.
That's a really good point. I wanted to ask, I guess, Giovanna, because you're here now. So can you tell us a little bit more about what is Scientia News and then what inspired you to start it?
Yeah, so we had a module in my final year of undergrad where we had to look at research journals and articles, and they gave us a task to try and write it in a more of an understanding manner so that if we give it to anyone to read, they'd be able to understand it, which I found really interesting because we've not really done anything to do with communication or journalism. So having that sort of gave me that idea that we need tools where we have more accessible information as well as rather than reading papers that's like 70, 80 pages long, we're able to cut that down for everyone to sort of understand. So that's how I sort of started it. And it's been amazing to try like finding new people through like LinkedIn that are working in scientific communication and journalism because I feel like that's a very underrated part of the STEM industry.
Definitely. Especially like now when I'm trying to, I guess, learn a little bit more about STEM and especially all the research papers that we have to get through, they're
Yeah.
complicated.
They are,
They're really
exactly.
heavy. It's good to know that at least somebody is working on making it a bit more easy for us to understand. Because I wish I had you when I was in first year. So many papers to read. Um, so I guess what I wanted to do, especially in this session, because the goal of the LinkUp is to see it is to be it. I really wanted to show girls that, there are successful women, even if, we're just students, but we're still, we're women in STEM working towards, technology, engineering. Giovanna's on the science side. So I wanted to get, if you guys could explain a little bit about what made you want to pursue STEM and like why did you pick it and what kind of motivated you to get into it? Was there a turning moment? If you could talk a little bit about that. So I'll start off with you about, and then I'll just kind of make my way around the room.
Okay. I would say, I mean, for STEM overall, because a lot of my family members, once again, are from STEM backgrounds. My dad is an engineer. My mom has done psychology before. My uncles are engineers or doctors. So I grew up in that environment. Also my aunts are also engineers and doctors, because it's a women and like girls in STEM, like. So yeah, at first I thought I was gonna be a doctor as well. And I had applied for like my UCAS and everything. I had gotten medical spots in the UK and everything until I watched this Instagram video So it was around the time of where like COVID was hitting Malaysia really badly. And there's this Instagram video of how they would like intubate the person, where they cut the throat and they put the little like uh tube in. And when I saw that, I was like, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can physically be able to cut a human person or do anything like that. And even before, I had a bit of my doubts here and there. I did do my work experience in a hospital. I saw a lot of things, and in my head, I was like, I cannot believe I have to do this. I was so, it was just like, I don't really want to do medicine because of the hospital aspect of it. I really like the science aspect of it. And at the time, I had not realized, I had not known that biomedical engineering was a thing. So I was very heavily involved with like school competitions that involve electrical engineering, or like the very basics of it. So when I got to like kind of switch my course, I found out about biomedical engineering. And that's how I got into this. And I've never looked back. I am so happy every day. I'm so grateful to be in this course, because it's exactly what I want to do in my life. I want to use my brains to help those in need.
I love that. I think that's very, it sounds a bit similar to how I got into biomedical engineering myself, because I didn't know the word for it, but I was still doing, robotics competitions and getting involved in different things at school. So it's fascinating that like when you're coming up in school, the little things that you're doing, even if it's something in the classroom, that you never know what you're going to pick up. And that's really going to kind of impact where you end up going in life. So it's quite fascinating, especially for STEM. Most of the time, it's just a textbook. They're like, here's a diagram of a person. And you're like, that sounds good. I'll pick that. So that's why I think stuff like this is really important to be able to show them the different kinds of things that are going on. And Jeevana, we talked about this. So just as a sneak peek, people, we did a podcast episode together that's recorded and being edited in the process. So when we were talking, you spoke a little bit more about the things that we were doing with genetics and the stem cells. You don't really dive that deep into it at school. So I wanted to ask you, especially because you're now pursuing that as your master's, you're doing the regenerative medicine and stem cells. I might have said it the wrong way around, but you're looking into that more now. So what motivated you to go from, studying it in high school and then really kind of picking that as to something to focus on now?
Yeah, so I studied international baccalaureate. So again, that's when they sort of started mentioning about stem cell at a very brief level. But when they mentioned that they could use those type of cells to cure diseases, that's what like sparked my, attention to that, and I really wanted to look more into it. So when I did my undergrad, again, they mentioned it very briefly about what stem cells was, but they never went that deep into how it can help cure diseases. So that's why I wanted to try and pursue a master's in that and specialize in that, because I want to look into how cells can be used to cure like basically anything, which has been amazing to see. I've learned so much this whole year about the number of diseases that can be cured, the amount of startup companies that are launching stem cell based and gene based as well. So yeah, I'm quite excited to delve deeper into that in the future.
Yeah, that's exciting. And then for you, so what got you interested in IT? Because I just, for Sophie and I interned underneath of her. So Sophie was my mentor when I was at Renaissance Re, learning a bit more about the IT service desk. And I remember you mentioning that your dad was involved in IT. So was that one of the things that got you interested in it, or was it something else? What got you interested in IT?
It's funny because my dad has always worked in IT. When I was younger, I thought, oh, I'd never work in IT. Gosh, it looks awful. But when I was in school and in education, I really enjoyed, the reading a textbook, the learning stuff, and then I didn't know how to apply all the knowledge that I kind of got, and it felt kind of, I don't know, annoying. But when I got into college, I realized there were so many different IT and tech courses. There was like media, there were gaming, everything like that. So I went for IT, learned all about computers, and that a lot of it includes documentation. You have to constantly learn things all the time because, it's not Windows 7 anymore, and so many other things. TVs change all the time, phones change all the time. You have to learn all the different security policies. So yeah, I enjoyed the college course when I was 16 to 18, so I decided to go ahead with the apprenticeship. That's the next step, and I just learned so much. And like, it's amazing how there's so many exams that you have to, or at least be knowledgeable of for Microsoft, for CompTIA, all the networking bits or the security bits, everything that makes a computer and the network system and an online system tick, essentially. And getting to know the user base is really rewarding as well. There's always a reason behind someone logging a ticket, and you keep in the transparency with the users as you go up to their desk and, you know, resolve their issues, etc. And it's really rewarding, the knowledge that you gain and the connections that you gain as well. It's very rewarding, and there's a lot of quick wins and long wins, etc. You get to be part of like the tech team, and we also kind of, you know, we're sort of the middle ground for lots of other departments for their applications, etc. So it's just brilliant. Every aspect that I wanted to know about, I found in Service Desk. And, you know, 6-7 years on, I've done 2 apprenticeships by now, and, you know, it's brilliant. So, yeah.
Fascinating. I think that something that I've been like kind of learning a bit more during the day, especially here at the LinkUp, listening to different women that I've been speaking with, is that a lot of the fields are more interdisciplinary than we get told. So, you know, you have to pull people from different backgrounds, and you get to learn a little bit more on the job than you would have expected. Because I feel like, you know, on paper, it's just like, I'm a service desk analyst. But then actually in practice, like you mentioned, there's so many different parts that you have to pull from, especially like having worked with you, looking at the networking and then the other different parts, you have the hardware, you have the user side. It's a lot. And then even you get to some of the other fields of STEM as well, you know, you can see from different perspectives, all these different, it's very interdisciplinary and really fascinating. So actually, I want to ask Jeevana for her perspective on this, especially because, you know, as the founder for Science and News, you have volunteers from many different subjects. So you have the physics, the medicine, math, all the sciences. So if you could talk a little bit more about that experience in terms of managing more of an interdisciplinary team. And then Val, I'm going to get you to give your points as well, because you have experience for sure with Hyperlink. So Jeevana, if I can start with you.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it was really hard at first trying to find people, but I think LinkedIn was like the best option for me to connect with everyone. And some people I'd met from Queen Mary were interested about my idea, so that's why it sort of sparked that. And it's crazy that now that I've got at least like a manager for each of the subjects that are on my website, so I've already got a management team for that, and altogether like 60 volunteers across all the subjects. And it's been like quite amazing that we've connected with so many people, and like some people message me saying that, oh, this person's doing the same course as me and I've never met them before, but now I've connected through Science News and now I know who they are. Like, you know, everyone's making friends and, you know, working together to make a difference in STEM as well, which is amazing to see. And yeah, it's great that I've met people from complete different backgrounds, learning what they're interested in and passionate about. And also, you know, supporting each other as well in anything. But yeah, it's been a very rewarding experience working with everyone, and I just hope that I can, you know, grow it into a bigger thing than it is right now.
Okay. I'm going to come over to you for your perspective as well on just kind of managing an interdisciplinary team.
I will agree with Jeevana that, you know, it is a bit difficult at times, especially in the beginning when you're trying to get everything up and running. But I'm very thankful to have had like a very strong committee for the past 2 years, leading all these 140 people. They're very passionate and they know when to get work done, and they know how to push others. So that was very good. And another thing I think which kind of inspired like this good number of people is that the opportunities you get after participating in a engineering society, because I do know some people who have gone on to work in Rolls-Royce or BMW as a placement year after working in Hyperlink. So I would think that Hyperlink did play a solid part in getting them those jobs. So that's something we kind of like the 140 students with, I guess. Like, this is really good brownie points for your CV. And yeah, it's been a tremendous experience for the past 2 years. I am no longer part of that, but it's been an amazing experience nonetheless.
Wonderful. And I think that one of the things that you guys have, well, at least it's been hinted at in what you've been saying, is that when you're leading these teams, you also become a bit of a mentor for them as well, because you're training them, you're helping them out. And Sophie, I know you have experience as well being a mentor in terms of the IT Tech, the students for Chelmsford College. So could you talk a little bit about your experience as a mentor there and the impact that you might have seen it have on the students?
Yeah, so I recently went back to my previous college before I came to this apprenticeship. I spoke with 3 classrooms in a row, and there was I spoke about, I had a little slideshow about, what the company does and what I covered in my apprenticeships, and how there's a portfolio you have to write about. There's a exam at the end that's kind of monitored by a camera, essentially. We have to build a network under simulation, explain how you did it and why. Then there's like an interview at the end, and how you have to really know your stuff by the end of it, but you're guided along the whole way. You have a skills coach during your apprenticeship, and you also have obviously your managers and your team when you're an apprentice. So I was explaining all this to the students at the college, and there were quite a few attentive students who were making notes, or they were asking questions about how qualified do they have to be to even get into an apprenticeship, because they were under the belief they had to have prior experience of IT. Maybe they had to build a PC when they were 10 years old or something like that. But actually, it's IT service desk. It's a place where you can come in with any bit of knowledge that you have, whether it's documentation or just kind of being a personable, approachable person, or being able to take notes and apply it, or having an idea of how to link previous aspects in. So a lot of the students were thinking they had to be textbook smart, when actually a lot of it is to do with there's a lot of practicalness in service desk, and there's a lot of communication that's constantly needed, and then a bit of documentation on the side to make sure you've put down your knowledge and the different policies that you have in the company. And they were asking about what you could do after an apprenticeship, and how do you study while you're doing an apprenticeship. And there were a lot of questions about how did you balance your time between doing exams, training courses, and having a full-time job. I was explaining to them that basically when you're an apprentice, you get given a set amount of time per week from your employer to go and do your studying, and your studying is guided the whole way through by a skills coach that's provided to you from the apprenticeship company. And the training courses you're given are directly linked to what you're doing in your role. So as soon as you've learned something, you can tell your team what you've learned, and then you can apply that straight into the next project you'll be involved in, or the next set of, tickets, or maybe you're going to go to an offsite and support a meeting event, which has a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of tasks that we do on the side that aren't just tickets and SLAs. There's a lot of inventory planning. There's all sorts of things. So they were really impressed to hear how it didn't take up all of your time at the weekends, etc., and that you are guided from every angle during an apprenticeship, and how you could go in with a can-do attitude, and you can get as far as you want to. And after the apprenticeship, there are so many options out there, because it's such a ground level, good base level of knowledge, and in personal aspects and technical aspects, to go out to different apprenticeships or maybe completely different role. It's always a great place to start, and it's really rewarding to go back to the students, and maybe I'll hear from them a few years later, or to train the apprentices or interns here. It's beautiful. Yeah,
I think that's lovely. And I think that the questions that you mentioned from the students, asking about your work-life balance and just wondering how you juggle it all, really, is questions that we all have when you're trying to get started, especially I feel like in the STEM field, you don't talk about it as much because it's usually quite expected that you already know because you're smart in the book. You know all the sciencey things, that you know all these cool things about IT and things. It's like, so they're like, of course you have all the other stuff handled. And you're like, I'm a human too. Like I actually need a little bit of support from time to time. So that's also one of the reasons why I wanted to have this panel to talk more about, the diary side of it. So just kind of getting behind the scenes and really trying to learn from you guys, especially because you guys are doing it quite well. We're all kind of learning, but we're going quite well to learn. I wanted to ask you guys more of I guess, the diary questions. So if you could talk a little bit more about how maybe you try to juggle some of your time, because we all have quite a lot of different interests. Like I know Sophie, even outside of work, you're doing all these other things as well. Jeevana, you're balancing a lot. Val, you're balancing a lot. So how do we juggle all of that? I'm not sure who to go to first, but I might pick on you, Val, just because you're the first person.
That's a good question. I will agree, I do juggle a lot, and sometimes, it's not worked in my favor. For most days, I do try to, organize my time well. I have like time blocks on my calendar. The thing with me is that I have grown up in a very, you do a lot of work environment ever since I was in primary school. So I'm very used to this type of environment. Actually, if I'm being completely honest, I thrive in an environment like that because now it's the summer. I have so much of time. I don't know like how to organize my time that well. Whereas when you're in university, you have classes like in the morning from like 9 to 11, then you have a little lunch break, and then you can kind of plan your time out nicely. So I feel like, as unconventional as it sounds, I feel like the more things I have on my plate, the better I am able to do things. Like I don't think about, oh, I'm going to be tired, or I need a nap or something. It's just do. But the thing with that is that it will lead to burnout. So yeah, I think I have gone through burnout a little bit, especially within the last semester, and I'm currently trying to come out of it. So, it's very important to have like hobbies. Like for me, my hobby is to cook, and I also really like just walking around London a lot. So those have helped me kind of cope with what I've done to myself for the past few years.
And I appreciate you actually, speaking about this and speaking about burnout because, like I mentioned, nobody's talking about it. So when it does happen, it feels like you're the only one. So it feels like, nobody else is doing that. Or if it's happening to you, it shouldn't be, because nobody's saying, oh, that's happening to me too. Like it's a normal thing. So if nobody's talking about it, how will you know that it's normal and that it's okay? So thank you for your perspective on that as well. And I'm going to move over to Jeevana just because we're coming back to you now. So I guess what would your perspective be on in terms of juggling a lot of things at once?
Yeah, so it's similar to what Val said. I think since I was young, I've been able to do like balance a lot of things. I used to do like dance music on top of like my education. And then when I did IB, we had a section called CAS, so we had to do loads of activities outside of outside of school. And like when I think about it now, the amount of things that I did whilst balancing IB, I just felt like I think doing a lot just helped me work out the timings, like what I need to do next. Um, but yeah, I think lately when it came to uni and especially masters, I've definitely felt burnt out like with everything that I've been doing. And obviously like working part-time as well on top of that. Yeah, it's really, really hard at some points to try and balance your time out. Like I always like try to write a schedule, but sometimes I don't follow it at the end. And I eat up my time on something more specific. Um, but yeah, it is very hard to have like a strict schedule. It's not always gonna go your way. Like for me, it doesn't always go to plan. Um, but it's just making sure that, the next day you wake up, you're like, okay, I'm gonna, try and finish off what I did yesterday and just making sure that you're happy and satisfied that you've done it. But
I
yeah.
think it's so funny that you say it, that your advice like that, because we just finished a panel called Generational Knowledge is Power. I think Val, you might have been in there for that one. But Dr. Karika Weldon, she actually gave the same advice that you don't have to get everything done in one day,
Yep.
and that it's okay to get it done another day. But
Exactly.
these are things that you don't think about in the moment. You're like, I have to get it all done right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's funny to see like the connections that we all have. Like this experience is it's quite good. It's good to see. So Sophie, I'm gonna come to you now for your opinion on it.
Do you know, very similar. It's funny how we all have very different roles, but we all have different schedules, whether it be with, you know, with work or with side hustles, side projects, or with even just personal life. But yeah, I mean, thinking back to my apprenticeship days, it was very much like you had your, let's say you had your 4 days at work and you try and pick up all the tasks you can and maybe do some documentation work, and then maybe you'll look at the inventory for the tariffs and the mobiles, and then you'll have your study day, and you have these expectations set to you from your employer at work, and you also have these expectations set to you from your skills coach. And I know that can be challenging. For me, it was a little while ago, but I mean, I see the apprentices now, you know, ever since I finished my apprenticeship, I became an unofficial mentor for the next apprentices in our team. So it feels like I sort of never escape it, essentially, in a really lovely way. But you know, it is, they set expectations, your skills coach, the apprenticeship I'm talking about, where, you know, every month they give you a call and they're like, great, now you've done this part of your report, you now need to write these 10 parts of your criteria. And it's very much like, even if you might not have covered that in your role yet, because the service desk role is so varied in what you might cover. You might have a week of ordering laptops and building a company image and operating system onto them and, you know, sending them out, or you might have a week of meeting rooms, checking them over, or you might have a week of something else. So you might not cover something like data protection or something if you haven't, it might not have been a ticket that come up yet. So it's trying to set the boundaries with the mentor at the time, kind of saying, well, I haven't covered that yet, but, you know, I still have this amount of time, and you sort of get trained gradually when you're an apprentice, which means you don't cover everything in the exact order they think you should. And it's not a bad thing either side, that's the thing. It's just that as well. Plus you have revision for exams and things like that. And what I remember is during my 3.5 years of doing 2 apprenticeships back to back, I did level 3 IT and then I did level 4 networking. Coming out of that and then becoming a full-time employee was sort of like, it was a really strange thing. It felt sort of like a weight off my shoulders of not having to essentially do a degree on the side of having a job, which felt, you know, obviously intense at times, but really rewarding and fun. It was. And then but then also sort of, okay, so what's expected now that I'm doing service desk full time? Should I be taking on more work, or, you know, should I be jumping into more projects, or do I just continue doing what I was doing, but it's just for longer hours because I'm not studying anymore? So that was a bit of a challenge then, and now the challenges are making sure there's the boundary between the workload that you're taking on in your role, because as much as you want to be helpful to everyone, you don't need to take, you know, there's other people as well. So it's just making sure that the whole team are taking on the same, and that everyone is trained into the same knowledge as well. Like I say, tech is changing all the time, so it's making sure that everyone is trained in the tech at once. Someone might get a different category of ticket, and then you learn something really exciting, and then you gather everyone around and you train everyone this amazing fix you found, you document it, and then you share out the link to everyone. So it's taking the time to
only because I want to, like, you're answering a question that I was going to ask later, so I'm going to pause you.
Sorry.
Like, don't answer it.
Apologies.
Yeah, one of these. I think one of the things that I've been noticing, and I spoke about this a little bit in the previous panel, was that when you're looking at, like, I think just I want to say women of color, but it's also been like more of a just a women thing in general, is that you're taking on so much because a lot of the fields, especially the fields that we're all in, so like, the engineering, the IT, the science, are quite male dominated. So when you come in, this is for the girls as well, so the younger girls, as you're coming in, I'm not saying this as like to deter you at all. It's like not in the slightest. But some of the fields can be quite male dominated. So it can be a little bit, I guess, difficult to not, I don't know what the word it would be, but maybe make your mark a little bit. So I wanted to ask you guys if you have any advice for, I guess, just kind of making yourself known and just kind of showing that I have that expertise. Because I know we all have experiences, I will say. I'm not going to actually describe them, but experiences of, people speaking over you, or just like those small little moments where it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's enough to be like, like, to kind of feel like that, okay, kind of moment. So if anybody wouldn't mind just kind of talking a little bit on that, making your mark, especially like, as women in the STEM field. I'm not sure who to call on first, but anybody that's ready. It's kind of go ahead. I'm gonna pick on someone. Jeevana, I'm picking on you.
I don't want to, like, if someone's going to say something and I'm just going to go. But yeah, so for me, yeah, it's the same thing. So like, I've not really had a role model in terms of scientist. It was something that I chose to do. So my parents couldn't finish university and they traveled. They're in the middle of war. They came all the way to the UK and had to start life from scratch. So they both were in more of the maths field, but they couldn't pursue anything in that. So yeah, it's been very hard to like find people, especially as a Tamil woman, people that are in sciences, making it big. And like you said, like in sciences is very male dominated. So yeah, I think that's again half the reason why I started this Scientia News project, because I want to inspire younger girls, especially Tamil girls, to pursue, do something in STEM, but as well as be a leader as well, which is, I think, another hard thing to find, like being a good leader, and being inspired by that. So I hope like doing this, I can inspire younger girls to be a leader in STEM as well, not just go into STEM.
I like that. Be a leader in STEM. And it does kind of go back to our link of looking at to see it is to be it. Because like you said, we're coming at it from like for example, Black Bermudian woman. I hadn't seen anybody that was doing engineering. Actually, I might not have met any Black Bermudian engineers quite yet, at least not women. And then, you guys are coming into it from your own perspectives, looking at being a woman in IT, being a woman in engineering, especially like you mentioned, being a Tamil woman in the science field. It's difficult to find mentors, especially that, look like yourself or that are interested in what you want to do. So I just, that's why I'm so glad that I have you guys here today to be able to show the students that there are girls out there, they're doing it, they're paving the way for us, and these are the kind of paths that you can follow. So going back to my question, so Val, I'm going to get you to kind of just keep that ball rolling of looking at how we can make our mark, especially in the fields that we're in.
I think the one major thing that's helped me is having confidence in whatever that I do. So I don't leave any space for reasonable, for like doubt, anyone to kind of come up and question me saying, hey, you've done this wrong. And even if they do, sometimes I'm not saying I do everything perfectly, but even if they do it in a disrespectful manner, I always put them in their place. I have very strong boundaries when it comes to that. I do not tolerate any sort of like slander or disrespect to the work that I'm doing, or even within like the societies that I've ran. I do not tolerate that in the slightest bit. Like if you are from Hyperlink, you'd know that if you do such a thing, then you'd get a strike. So I think that's very important for like, because I also did not have a mentor. I did not have like a woman in STEM who was doing like, the things that I was doing, because it's all very niche. So I think it's also good that I've kind of done these things, that I've portrayed myself to be this like very confident with strong boundaries person, so that I can inspire the girls in these teams, or just inspire girls overall to kind of come up and be something of that sort, and make sure that no one tramples on you or on your ideas.
Great advice, really good. Visibility, so important. Sophie, I'll head over to you now.
Hello. Yeah, so I was very fortunate that growing up in the career, there were female role models. There were, you know, a lot of our managers in tech, in IT were, you know, female, and they were very confident, and they showed who they were in everything they did. And they were very well respected because of the knowledge they had as well. So they brought their full self forward, their authenticity and everything. And they also, you know, backed themselves, and they, you know, just like anyone else, you know, is kind of you learn and you know what it is you're talking about, and you know, you bring your confidence and your authenticity, and you know, you bring excitement to it as well. And if you have, you know, queries and things like that, you would speak with your team, and then, you know, teamwork goes a long way as well, especially in this role. So it's about being a team player and also having that knowledge yourself, and yeah, just kind of being completely yourself. And yeah, that's what I basically learned from them.
And I'm just going to take a quick pause, mainly to let the attendees know that we are in the last 15 minutes of the session. This is the time for you guys. If you have had questions, you can either put them in the chat, or if you'd like to be brave, you can also interact a little bit more with some of our panelists by raising your hand, and I can unmute you if you'd like to connect with anybody and, you know, network a little bit as well. This is your chance to do that. All these girls are very friendly, and they're very willing to speak with you and definitely encourage you a little bit more. So the Q&A session is open, and if you have any questions, be sure to drop them into that chat. I'm going to go back to Val just because I had another thought in terms of what you were saying about that not taking any disrespect, especially, you know, in an engineering field, because like I said, it is quite male dominated. This is not to discourage you girls at all, because, you know, obviously we're here. So it is very possible, and definitely I want you to join it as much as possible. But when, you know, as a woman, when you're taking that position of no nonsense, it can be labeled like negatively from time to time. And definitely, I see the nod. So have you found that when you're, you know, you're setting your boundaries and you're making like your position known, and is it received well? Like how do you navigate with that as well?
So okay. I don't know if it's been received well. I would like to think it's been received well, but I have heard from certain people in my course that I am a bit bossy. Well, but then when you kind of see, I kind of rationalize this into the ways that if you are a person who does your work, you're very respectful to people in your team, and you know, you're doing proper work, then I'm going to leave you as you are. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to boss you around or anything. But if you're lazy and disrespectful, then yes, I will boss you around. So the thing is that when I heard these things, when I heard that people were calling me bossy and everything, I kind of looked at who was the source, and I kind of think of my experiences with them. And my experiences with them have not been the best. So, and then I just kind of think to myself, do I really want to care about this person's opinion? No, I don't. So I don't. I think that's one thing that a lot of people, I realize, overlook, is that they never look at the source of the opinion. Because sometimes you'll get very stupid opinions. I'm sorry, but you'll get very stupid opinions about yourself, about things in general. So you always need to assess the source of it and critically think if like you want to take it in or not.
I think that's a really good point as well, to think about, I guess, because, you know, the criticism will come. Like, you know, people will always have something to say. That's just how people are. But it's good to be able to think about how you're going to let it impact you. And I really appreciate you for giving that perspective as well. I think we've dived quite good into the diary questions, and I definitely will be coming back to some of them as well. But I wanted to ask you guys a little bit more about some of in your own fields, are there any, I guess, exciting innovations that you've been noticing, or things that even maybe you yourself are working on? Jeevana, I'm looking at you because I've been talking to you a bit more about your master's thesis and the cool things that you were doing for that. So I kind of want to ask you, about the, I guess, innovative things that you've been working on in your own project, and then, having to advocate for when you want to be able to do those things. Because that's one of the things as well in academia, is that you could have a really cool idea, but if somebody says no, or if perhaps the support isn't really there, it can be quite difficult. So can you talk a little bit more about being innovative, or like anything exciting that you're working on for your...
Yeah, so especially with this year's course, we've been learning about different types of technologies to cure different types of diseases. And yeah, so for my master's thesis, I had to basically create my own technology to cure a disease. And obviously it was very hard because we had to write it in like a business plan format. And it's not like we're physically like making this technology. We're just basically researching this off scratch. So yeah, it took a while to get, our professors to be like, is it a green light, red light for our idea? So I'm very passionate about looking into respiratory diseases, which I started from undergrad in my undergraduate dissertation. And so this year I wanted to work on a disease known as ARDS, which is a type of respiratory disease, and also COVID being a big thing. There's now a disease called COVID ARDS, and there hasn't been a stem cell cure for that. So I've been working on that for the past 3 months and basically making my own technology from scratch, just mixing a bit of technology that's been made out there and making it into my own thing. And so, yeah, I'm quite nervous, to be honest, knowing what their opinion's going to be, because in a couple of weeks I need to present it as well. Yeah, I hope it goes well.
I definitely will. I think you'll be good. I will pause only because we have a question from the chat. Actually, there's two questions. Hooray! We have the first one is asking, I think, Val, this might be back to you and what you were talking about earlier. Anonymous attendee would like to know, what do you do if your teammates start to hate you when you're doing that kind of thing, I guess? Bit of a difficult question.
Oh, saucy. I think then it kind of comes down to the fundamental basis of it, is that am I there to make friends, or am I there to do my job? Am I there to lead my team? So, I mean, of course, the answer is going to be I'm there to lead my team, because if I was there to make friends, I'd just be a member. So then I guess once, like, if my team has labeled me as if a good chunk of them have labeled me to be bossy and they dislike my work, I can't do anything about it. Is that as long as they do their work and, like I said, they are still respectful to the environment that they're in, I don't really care. As long as they're doing their work, maybe it'll hurt a little bit, but you have to brush over it. As a leader, you need to brush over these things and you need to focus on what's important. But if it's something to a point where it's disrupting their work, if like they're not doing their work in form of like a protest or something, kick them out. You still have the liberty to kick them out as the team manager of the president. You still have the liberty to do that, because the thing is that you can't have these little seeds that grow in your environment, because once they start hating on like how it's being, like how the management is, or like how just like how the management is, and if they start not doing their work, that's going to inspire a few more seeds to not do that. And then you're going to have a big chunk of people who just don't want to do their work because they're like, oh, she's bossy, I don't want to do this anymore. So you can't really have that. So the second that you see something like that, you have to kick it out and replace it with someone new. As authoritarian as that sounds, it's unfortunately how to make a good team work. So you can't really take everything to heart.
That's good advice. So you can't take everything to heart. I'm gonna ask the second question. Keep them coming, guys. Plenty of time for questions. Well, 7 minutes, but it's plenty of time. So this question is from Curtis. So she says, hi, thank you so much for the session. I really appreciate the advice on juggling the busy diary and leading in a male-dominated field. How do you navigate decision-making when your team has conflicting ideas, ensuring that everyone feels heard while moving forward efficiently? I'm not sure if I should ask Sophie or Jeevana who wants to do this one. Sophie, I'm going to bug you for now, and then Jeevana, coming back to you for your answer.
So yeah, obviously with me having a management team as well as like the main team as well, yeah, everyone's going to like throw in their own ideas, and at the same time, I also need to make that final decision as well. But I always do my best to incorporate like at least a part of someone's idea into this. So this whole project itself, I wouldn't say it's just me. It's been a whole team effort. Everyone's been sharing me like their ideas, and I'll take it into consideration, or I'll just be honest and be like, maybe not right now, maybe another time, or we can try it like this, we can try it like that. Um, but yeah, I do try my best to listen to people's ideas, and I also talk to them. I talk with them through it as well, and I also try and give them advice as well, which they take in well. But like Belle said, with the whole not everyone's going to, you know, they're not going to always be happy with you. I've struggled in the past with a couple of comments being like, you know, a bit bossy. I feel like this is a bit too much. But again, I know what their habits are. They might be quite lazy with the work that they do. And especially with mine, is that mine is online as well. So I have to keep messaging people and being like, have you done this? Have you done that? And the thing is, I let everyone be flexible in the work that they do. Because I understand they've got their own life, university, you know, studies, jobs, whatever it is. So even with that and being flexible, they also need to understand, you know, I've given them this role for a reason. They need to, you know, put some effort into it. Um, but yeah.
Thank you so much. That's okay. I would like to get some of your opinions. We actually have another question. So this one is more of well, it's going back, I think, to what we were talking about earlier. So it's saying how to deal with egotistical men. And I feel like we could all answer that question, but I'm going to give it to Sophie first, and then we'll go to some other people and see what they have to say.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a kind of it depends about how you kind of think about it. Like the way that I see it is that there's always something behind it. There's never just black and white. It's never just, you know, I hate you, you hate me, whatever. It's normally they may have a busy schedule, or they may have other things on their mind, or there's always a reason they're not telling you why something may be urgent, etc. It's just a case of kind of getting an understanding of how different people work. Like I remember when I first joined, we did a personality kind of session, like a personality quiz, and there's different types of personalities. You can research it. I'm amiable, so I'm, you know, about the people and, you know, just love the people and, you know, but there's also different personality types, like analytical, like they just want to see the data and analyze it and know what they need to do next based off of what you told them, like what's next, what's the risk of something, and that's their personality style. There's also driver, which is they don't have the time for the hellos, the things like that. They have other things on, so you just need to tell them the facts about, for example, hi, I've, you know, replaced the screen on your screen protector on your phone. I just want you to test it by doing this, or I want to arrange a meeting with you, but I see you're busy. Here's what we're going to talk about in our meeting, if we can make it 5 or 10. And if you kind of approach people in the way that they need to be approached, whether that's a phone call or an email or a Teams chat, formal, informal, you get the best out of everyone. It's not everyone's going to be like you. And it's just finding, that's kind of one of the fun parts of the job, kind of learning about people and what makes them tick, what doesn't make them tick. And everyone has their own experiences, and each personality type brings an amazing benefit to what you do in your job, you know. We're all kind of interlinked, and that's how I feel it is, you know. So it's all very opinionated if you go to school, and I understand where that's coming from, because it might seem like war they're at you, but it also just depends on the context of the situation. Maybe it's about something you're not quite trained on yet, and it can go, oh, okay, maybe I made a little mistake, I'm so sorry about that, like I've done that, I've gone, oh, okay, hold my hands up, didn't quite do it right, or didn't do it in the right order, can you show me, can we set aside some time, and I'll
We paused. I think Sophie might have
make
paused.
notes and I'll do better for next. Depends on the context and all, why it might be. be that way from that person. Yeah.
I think I can add on my own experience with this as well, because when I was first getting into robotics competition, so the one that I went to is called First Global, so it's a little acronym. I can't remember what it stands for right now, but not important to the story. But basically, I had gone to an all-girls school beforehand, so I hadn't really experienced, I would say, the male ego, really. So when I went to the competition, it was for we were working with 3 different teams. So each was a country, and then you'd have an alliance of 2 other teams. So we had an alliance. I don't remember the other country, but China was the one that I had to deal with. And when we brought over our robot, the first thing they did was take it from us, and then they started just working on it, just taking stuff off. They were unscrewing things, and we were like, "What are you doing?" So we tried to act nicely, to say like, "What's going on?" Ignored. So that's when, I like to say my inner mom, especially getting my fiery personality at the time from my mother. So like that kind of kicked in, and I immediately was like, "What are you doing? Let go of our robot, put it down," having to actually assert myself. So in terms of like how to deal with egotistical men, I would say it's really, it goes down to that experience. So you have to try it. It'll probably happen to you at least once, but you really just have to assert yourself and just keep in mind that you do have the skills, and you know what you're doing. And even Sophie said, if you don't know, then you can build up those skills. Ask for help, preferably not that person, but ask for help and just kind of learn a little bit more from there. So we are at the end of the session, but that's okay, because I think we ran out a little bit of time in terms of coming on a bit late, but that's okay. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for joining me. So we had Balvinder, who's the former president for Hyperlink, and now she is a research assistant, moving on to her master's in biomedical engineering. We wish her the best of luck. We have Sophie, who's joining us from Renaissance Re as a service desk analyst. She can come and give you a lot of perspective in terms of the IT world. And Jeevana, who can give us a lot of perspective because she's doing her master's in stem cell research and regenerative medicine at King's College London. So, the big names in terms of also Queen Mary, which is where we came from, but just looking at these different companies and the girls that are there and how you can juggle all of this, being a woman in STEM, trying all these different things, and especially having all these different interests, it can be a lot to juggle. So I hope this session gave a bit more insights into the woman in STEM experience, really, as I say in the title, the diary of a girl boss. So I think that's what we all are as women in STEM. So thank you guys for joining me, especially the girls. And I will see you again in 30 minutes for our panel. So that one is going to be with a robot, just so that we're all clear. He is a talking robot. His name is Captcha. He's from Heatable Research. It's a company that I met while I was on conferences, which I will tell you about later in a podcast episode. We don't have time for that today. But you can get to know Captcha a little bit more. So you can ask him questions, and he does respond to you. If it was in person, he can actually track your face as well. So if you move around, he follows you. Pretty cool. So be sure to come back on at, I believe it is so that's going to be at 2 o'clock Bermuda time, or 6 o'clock if you're in London. Anywhere else, I'm sorry, he will have to Google the time difference. But I look forward to seeing you all again in about 30 minutes. Thank you for joining me. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.